So coming from Liberty University and the background that you have, when you've left it and gone to this very unusual world of VC capital and trying to do AI, how do those two worlds square now that you're, 22-year-old independent person away from the family?
Honestly, it's not. I thought that again, having this education where it's apologetics and how are you going to argue your faith to the world, and everybody's going to be trying to like thrusting their secular beliefs on your life. Like, it's not the case. I wrote my senior thesis at the end of high school on the realm of faith and science and how do these overlap. And I defended it in front of our headmaster, and it's supposed to be this big, serious thing. And on one hand, it was great. It prepared me a lot because I read great thinkers in this space and sort of like knew what the historical precedent was. But on the other hand, like, everybody is interested in these questions. Like, some people have radically different beliefs than me about like Silicon Valley and the sort of state of ethics there. But rarely have I met somebody who's just like a total like utilitarian, like algorithms are helping our lives and so we should just not think about it, or there's no very serious issues like brought up by this technology. And so honestly, it's been very exciting to get into all these very serious spaces where people are truly like honestly deciding the future, and see that people are really, really seriously thinking about the implications and whether or not this could be used for more evil than good. It is hard because often, especially, and we're sort of in this AI race against China and a number of other places, I think we have like we're in a challenging space where you have to decide, do we want to not develop this thing that could be used for evil and let China potentially just go for it ahead of us and have total reign on that space, or do we develop something that could be very detrimental, but still at least have sort of like national reign on that space?
What is the race? What's the end state? What's the point that you get out, you cross the finish line, and you're like, we won?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody knows. Yeah, that's part of the challenge. Is it's sort of like, how much money do we need to put into this? How much talent do we put into this? Like, what does winning against China, like, is there ever any point where anybody like puts up the white flag and it's like, okay, I'm done like working on questionable technology, you guys won the race? I don't think that's the case. And so it is sort of a false framework. Yeah, I think there's.
But what is it that people are trying to create? What is it that we want to make sure we create before another culture does?
I think just more intelligent machine learning, deep learning, where we can set up systems that are essentially making themselves more efficient at doing a number of things, whether that's like playing chess against humans. Like, we've seen how humans have beat the greatest chess players in the world. That's like slowly expanding to more and more areas, whether that's like facial recognition, which is obviously probably the most questionable at the center of this, where there's like the Uyghur camps in China, and their technology has been so strong. They probably have the strongest facial recognition technology in the world, where they can sort of identify people that they're looking to track down, which is scary. But also, if we understand how that works, the security research can often also, we can better understand how to both infiltrate these systems, work around these systems. We can better understand how to tell people to work around facial recognition systems, whether that's wearing something on your face, painting something on your face. Like, that's a very prominent area of research at the moment.
Well, that's interesting, because that's a little bit like, hey, we have to study viruses, which is dangerous, in order that we can know what they can do. Like we can find things to prevent. That's fascinating. I had never thought about AI research being, I mean, you could frame up an entire program just on defense, not even to go on the offense.
Yeah, like, so OpenAI, funded by Elon Musk to sort of like democratize and open up AI to more people and make sure it's like a ethically developed space. Earlier this year, or earlier last year, came out with GPT-2, which is basically like a natural language processing like generator. So basically, somebody, to give you an example, somebody trained this algorithm and had this essay generated that they submitted to a contest, which is all other humans, and the essay won like in the top 10 places. Nobody knew that this essay was generated by AI, And before releasing GPT-2, because it's now accessible by the public, you can sort of play around with it and do whatever you want. OpenAI actually paused for a little while and said, we've come across some research. We think that it is so transformational. We're not sure about the implications. We're going to hold off a few months, think about this, and then decide what to do. And they ended up releasing it. But I do think it's going to be transformational, whether it's like they can almost replicate a scientific study or like a news article with the accuracy and sort of like order of the way this produces text.
That would be knocking out human potential on a scale that people had not anticipated. And I remember for a long time, my brother, who runs a geothermal well drilling company, he's a very, very smart guy, lives in central Illinois, and he took his accounting background and decided to do really difficult manual labor. And he talks all the time about people think that the manual labor jobs are going to be the ones that go away. But he's like, it's going to be a long time before you can turn a robot into doing plumbing underneath your sink. It's going to be a long time before you can have guys out there doing the work that we do. Not saying it can't be done, but that it won't be. And I think a lot of scientists have been sitting around being like, well, it's not going to get us. Like, we look at our intellect. That's what makes us valuable. But you're saying something that is not what people were anticipating. They were anticipating the working class man would be knocked out, not the scientist.
Yeah, I mean, I think GPT-2 is definitely not like largely representative. Natural language processing still has a very long way to go before I think it's replacing any writing. But again, this is an idea, honestly, that got me into AI in the first place, which is this guy, Douglas Eck, who's this Google researcher, was doing this research about music and music that's algorithmically generated, and was asking a lot of questions of, will creativity ever be something that is like algorithmically replaced? And he would say no. He would say no. Throughout all of time, algorithms are often like a lot of tools that we've started out using, and people were like, oh, are the pen and paper going to replace our brains? You know, are we going to forget everything we've ever learned because we're using pen and paper? Like, is this going to dictate how the rest of our world develops? And maybe it was true, but we still sort of retained our human nature and managing all these technologies. And I think for a lot of cases that people imagine, like immediate, like plumbing or creating art, like it's just going to totally be replaced. And that's not the case with a lot of things. There's plenty of areas to worry about, I will say that, but I think people often like don't have the correct framework around that, I think.